Okay, thank you. Thank you for your patience, and good afternoon, everybody. Just before we start, I'll just mention to you, we have interpretation in English and French. English is on channel 1, and French is in channel 3. And you'll find your headsets in the desk in front of you, and the controller next to it. So if you need interpretation, please use the headsets. So, very warm welcome to everyone, and I would like to invite Xiaofeng Hu, the Director of Science Policy and Basic Sciences, to open the meeting with his opening. Mr. Hu, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thanks, Ezra. Dear Laureate, dear jury members of the Laureate UNESCO for Women in Science International Award, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear friends, it is my greatest pleasure to welcome you all to UNESCO for this special event with the 2024 Laureate of the L'Oreal UNESCO for Women in Science International Award. This afternoon, we will discuss and reflection on why the world needs science and why science needs women. For 26 years, UNESCO and the Foundation L'Oreal have worked together to promote gender equality in science through the For Women in Science International Award and the Young Talent Program, covering more than 140 countries. Since its creation, this program has honored more than 4,400 women for the excellence of their research. Among the 132 laureates, 7 have received a Nobel Prize. The remarkable achievement of our laureates who are with us today demonstrated that competency and determination are the true markers of the leadership. They show us that the bigger you dream, the bigger you achieve. Our event will begin with presentations from the laureates about their groundbreaking research and how it contributed to society and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. From Brazil to France, Canada to Cameroon and China, the pioneers' work of the laureates across diverse scientific disciplines like immunology, biology, biochemistry, or human genetics highlight how science can indeed change the world and how it knows no gender. In the second part of this event, the laureate will discuss the UNESCO call to action, Closing the Gender Gap in Science, launched last February on the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. The global call for action was launched to inspire a global movement and set the global agenda to tackle the issue of underrepresentation of women in science, technology, engineering, and innovations. We will explore ways to advance this agenda. We will talk about the need to encourage girls to pursue STEM studies and the importance of a supporting environment. We will discuss the critical importance of the role models and the strategies to increase their visibilities and outreach. We will also address workplace environment, emphasizing the need for inclusive structures that hire, advance, and retain women in STEM. We will ask our laureate to share best practice and policy recommendations to help us to achieve this transformation. Gender gap in science is not a new concept, but it is still overshadowed. It is now the time to accelerate our action towards gender equality in science, not just as a benefit for women, but for all of humanity. We must continue this conversation, focusing on transforming the scientific ecosystem rather than expecting women to adapt to it. We need to open doors and remove barriers for women and girls in all STEM fields and all career levels. The 5 L'Oreal UNESCO for Women in Science laureates that we have the pleasure and the honor of having with us today are exceptional role models, not just for all of us here today, but also for the generations yet to come. Thank you again to the laureates and to our audience here at UNESCO and online for being with us today. By uniting our effort, we can pave the way for future in which science truly knows no gender boundary because the world needs science and science needs women. I wish you all a successful meeting and look forward to closing the gender gap in science with you. Without further ado, let me pass the floor to Ezra Clark, the Chief of the Science, Technology, and Innovation Policy section here at UNESCO, who will moderate the first part of the event. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Xiaofeng. Thank you for those opening and inspiring words for us all. So let me once again welcome everyone. Just a quick reminder, if you joined us just now, that interpretation is in Channel 1 in English and Channel 3 in French. And before we begin, I'd just like to mention that in addition to all of you in the room here, we have over 200 people joining us online, so welcome to you as well. And I encourage our online guests to actively use the chat for questions, reflections, suggestions and ideas. And please also, if you're a user of social media, please post about this event on the hashtags. We can see Women in Science and UNESCO. So as you would have seen from our agenda, this event is in two parts. And it's my pleasure to start the first part, which, among other things, we're asking this question, exploring why is science indispensable to the world? Living in a world that's profoundly shaped and influenced by science, technology, innovation, we're very keen to hear from the 2024 L'Oréal UNESCO for Women in Science laureates on how their work helps us advance science and addresses the critical global issues. How is it relevant to society? Is it indeed indispensable? How does it contribute to the achievement of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? Each of our laureates will have 10 minutes for her presentation, and we'll follow up with a question and answer session where we'll open it up to you, the audience. So let us begin with Professor Nian Yang, the laureate for Asia and the Pacific, recognized for her discoveries in structural biology. Professor Yan, the floor is yours for 10 minutes, and if you wish to use the podium. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Once again, I would like to take this opportunity to thank UNESCO, Foundation L'Oréal, all the jury members, and also our incredible staff who have supported us since half a year ago. Thank you so much. And because I only have 10 minutes and I have a lot of slides, so I will just directly go to my speech. So why is science indispensable to the world? Because we are facing so many challenges, not only unmet healthcare need, but climate change, energy crisis, environmental crisis, all of this. I cannot think of any way other than addressing these challenges in a scientific way, I mean, across nations with a well-designed strategy. We rely on the science advances and technological breakthrough to empower us, to enable us to address these challenges, not only for ourselves, but also for our future generations. And for myself, yesterday, the day before yesterday, I gave a lecture on my research. And actually, I was also frequently asked this question: what kept you? At which moment did you realize that you would like to be a scientist? You would like to take research as your lifetime career? I always told them that I was destined to be a structural biologist in retrospect. Why? Because in China, there was a very famous novel called The Journey to the West, and the main character is the Monkey King. So he can transform to any shape, to any size. So I read that novel many times, but I was like, hey, why didn't the author describe the world from his eyes? when he shrank to like 1 nanometer, then I realized, oh, that author who was born 1,000 years ago had no knowledge about it. And then when I was watching the movie Ant-Man, he can even shrink to like the quantum scale, but still no one told you what kind of world he would see when he shrank to like 1 nanometer scale, right? But I'm always curious about the world that cannot be perceived directly by naked eyes. That's why I think this is my real curiosity. So I was destined to be a structural biologist. And then when you can also work at pharmaceutical companies, right, as a structural biologist. What kept me in academia? So I always remember one night when I was a first-year graduate student in Princeton University, and it was about 11 p.m. And I just went to the other side of the building, and then I saw 2 labs still have people around, and then actually one on the left, one on the right, 2 professors with gray hair. One is Trudy Schubach, at that time already a member of National Academy of United States, and the other one is her husband, Eric Wishaw, a Nobel laureate. So they were both in their 60s at that time, and 11 p.m. They were working under the microscope on their own. That moment, I all of a sudden felt this inner peace, and I think I saw my future at that moment. I told people I could imagine myself like that, but not necessarily with a husband. So that's the moment I decided to stay in academia. And just last week, last Monday, I was back to Princeton. I spent a couple of days to catch up with my friends and colleagues. And Trudy and Eric were just back from a trip to Europe. And you know what? They went directly to the lab from the airport. They were both retired. They no longer supervised graduate students, but they were still doing experiments by themselves. I think that was another truly inspirational moment for me. I think that's why we hope also to become this sort of role models for our future generation. And okay, so I know this is kind of a bit far-fetched. Let me get back to my research. So what is structural biology and why it is important to the world? Oops. Can you play? And there's also sound. Yeah, as I mentioned, that I was always intrigued and curious about the world that could not be directly by our eyes. And here is a video made by H.H. Mai and Harvard University almost a decade ago. But this is a very nice illustration of this amazing molecular world inside ourselves. As you can see here, I mean, the ocean life is actually the lipids that constitute the membrane, and all the fibrils, like the particles, they are proteins. Proteins have different shapes. Proteins are good nutrients, but more importantly, they are machines that support our daily activities as shown here, and also they serve as the scaffold to hold up the shape to provide rigidity in the cell. And this is a highly dynamic process. These are called microtubules. This is my favorite thing. So this is the motor protein tracking along the microtubules. It's vesicle. It's a lipid vesicle. Right? And this world reminds me of our human society. We have different roles to maintain healthy function. All right. So for that world, it's mainly about the inside of ourselves. Then, to support this activity, we need to take food to provide energy. So my first, mainly a major project is to understand how one of the main energy provider, that is embed into our cells. And you can see this is red blood cells, and embedded in the membrane is glucose transporter. And our work, this is our work. We build how this membrane protein, known as glucan-1, take glucose and undergo a conformational change to allow glucose to be released in the cell. Although this is only a 3-second like snapshot, it took us 6 years to complete it, but it is very well recognized because this is such a fundamental process in our daily life, in our physiology. And that is about the very basic aspect of biological studies. So it was recognized by I would say, classical textbooks, and I was very proud, and I acknowledged my fabulous team again and again. And then after we take energy, what's next? Of course, to move around, right? But not just for us to do exercises. We need this energy to produce information, to generate signals for communication, for neurological activities. So these are controlled by another family of proteins known as ion channels. So this is just to show you electricity is not only important for human society, it is also important for all animals or even bacteria. And recent studies also show that ion channels play an important role in the signal transduction in plants. And these channels are very important, and this is to exemplify why science is indispensable to the world, because we have many unmet healthcare needs. One of them is the opioid crisis that has frequently made headlines before the pandemic. And because there lacks this sort of non-addictive painkillers, the opioid crisis has represented a major economic burden as well as a health threat. Sorry, I did not have enough sleep, so quite a few glitches, sorry. And then, scientists have been working hard to look for new targets to develop novel and non-addictive painkillers, which we also call analgesics anyway. So the clue actually came in about 2 decades ago. So in 2006, you can see here is actually a report from New York Times. It summarizes this breakthrough in the basic research that scientists from UK has identified one gene, the loss of function of this gene product, which is a sodium channel, can lead to complete loss of pain sensation. So that was reported in 2006. So if, for some people, a small group of people who do not have this channel, they could not feel pain at all. But on the other hand, 2 years before that, 3 groups from different countries separately reported mutations also in the same gene that lead to abnormal, extreme pain disorder. So these discoveries have made this gene product, NaV1.7, a terrific target to develop painkillers, because if you can specifically stop its activity, pain may be alleviated. So that's the rationale behind our research. But there are 9 different subtypes of sodium channels, 9 kinds of sodium channels in our body. When you block NaV1.7, you do not want to block our heartbeat, right? So our goal is to solve the structures of each and every sodium channel, to look for subtype-specific druggable site. So that is, we hope our drug only block NaV1.7, but not others, for higher potency and safety. Okay, to cut the long story short, because of technological breakthrough, we finally solved the first structure of eukaryotic sodium channels, and then we solved almost all human sodium channels. And by now, we have a pretty good sense of where to target. So with the recent breakthrough in AI for structure prediction and small molecule development, we are hoping that we will eventually be able to contribute to pain management to help address the opioid crisis. So here is a slide that I did not show yesterday, so the day before yesterday. But can you see something from this slide, something weird? Only one girl, right? So that one actually was made in 2015. So the team was mainly working on glucose transporters. And then was like, what's wrong? I always have equal number of girls. Where were they? Actually, they were working on channels. So this is the next one. Like for the acknowledgement, now you can see that one was taken in 2020. Oh no, 2019, actually now I have even more girls in my lab. And okay, that's my presentation. Thank you very much, and sorry for the glitches.
Thank you very much, Professor Yan, for that excellent presentation. And we have a few minutes now for questions. So I'll open the floor for a couple of questions, and if anyone has a question, please raise your hand. Okay, please, and if you could please introduce yourself before you ask. Thank you.
Sure. Khalid Machaka, I'm the professor and the Dean of Research at Weill Cornell in Qatar. So Nian, quick question. The amount of work that it took for you to get to a stage where we're able to identify potential drug targets is a bit daunting. You know, if you think about it before. What are your thoughts for the future in terms of hastening that process and making discoveries faster? Using structural biology approaches.
I have to be honest with you, before the revolution of cryo-EM, I thought I would just provide the structures and a bunch of experts will work on drug discovery, right? However, after this breakthrough, I realized now solving structure is so easy. It's just like 40 years ago, sequencing, DNA sequencing was the challenge. If you could clone a gene that ended up in a kind of high-profile publication, nowadays it's just so regular. Now I think solving structures is becoming a routine practice. Like many companies can even do that itself. Now it's like I think an enabling to accelerate. But from my limited experience with drug discovery, we can help accelerate the first part, like before the clinical trials, because cryo-EM and AlphaFold and all other kind of AI tools and computational tools can help us like speed up the identification of new targets, of new lead compounds, right? But then when it comes to the real animal experiments and, or not animal, or maybe organoids based experiments and clinical experiments, I think probably that will become the, still the bottleneck.
Good afternoon, I'm Catherine Didion. I work at Boise State University on the CHIPS and Science Act project there with Micron and Boise State. Dr. Yan, I loved your talk, and I want to actually raise an issue because you talked about the two members of the Academy and one Nobel laureate who worked late at night. And in full disclosure, I was the director of the Committee on Women at the Academy for a decade. But I would argue that as a role model for a lot of our students and a lot of those that we want to engage is not necessarily something they can copy or they can have the opportunity to do. So what are the ways we can help? Because what we know is we tend to lose women after their PhD. They go and they get their PhD, they may do a postdoc, but they don't end up being in the workforce. So are there ways that we can create more pathways or on-ramps to women who have the training, who could be part of your lab and the discovery, but may not have the opportunity for a variety of different reasons to work the hours because of other commitments they have? And that's not to critique your mentors at all, but just to say, are there other pathways that we could be thinking about for both men and women in science? Thank you.
Thank you. So actually, yeah, so I just mentioned Eric and Trudy. So when I grew up in Princeton University as a graduate student, then postdoc, basically as trainee, I think one thing in retrospect that was important for me was to see the diversity of female faculty in our department. So we had like Trudy and Eric as couple, and also Liz and Fred. So we had several couples, they are very happy. And we also had female professors who were divorced or who are always single. I mean, all kinds of ways. I think this kind of diversity itself is a kind of powerful message that you can be anyone you'd like to be. Right? I mean, for my students, I do not, when they approach me for advice, I always told them, I don't want to tell you what to do or what's the right thing to do, because you need to figure out yourself. But just keep in mind, one thing is important. Be confident. You're already here in the graduate school. You are very smart. Otherwise, you will not even be able to make it to this stage, right? So everyone has their strength and weakness. Sometimes you may feel frustrated, but come on, never lose your confidence. That's why yesterday I ended up with like, be brave, be yourself. I think it's important for girls, for everyone to be driven by their internal motivation, but with confidence. And also, of course, we need to provide a very supporting environment, right? As mentors, we give them whatever support that we can offer. And also now I'm head of 2 institutes. I'm very keen to this issue. So I think that, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we'll move on to there. Certainly, this topic will also come up, and we'll hear from the other laureates in the second session. So, let me thank you again very much, Professor Yan. Okay, and next we will turn to Professor Nada Jabado, the laureate from North America, honoured for her groundbreaking research in human genetics. Professor, you have 10 minutes for your presentation, please.
So, bonjour, bon après-midi, and good afternoon, everyone. I thought I would bore you with my voice better than my slides, and I was too lazy after last night to kind of do them. Maybe they will have more impact. So, why is science indispensable to the world? 10 minutes, really? So I'll start by saying, first thing, in the word of Einstein, our knowledge is defined, our imagination, our intuition, our curiosity are boundless. This is what pushes our boundaries. The Earth was flat until it was found round. We now kind of send, like within seconds, on the airplane, on internet, whatever, things that are invisible. We fly everywhere. We visited, not yet Mars, we visited the moon, soon to be Mars. There's a Martian, there's so many things. All of that is because of people that were curious, not only for themselves, but also for the betterment of others. And some of those applications are leading us more and more. What I wanted to say, and again, I have 10 minutes, I'll go fast, not to bore you too much with what I do in the lab, but I'll end with a little bit of what I do in order to inspire people, hopefully, to join us. But to say, okay, it's the world. It's not only health. It's also environment. It's energy. It's the different interaction between people at many levels, and I won't go there. It is all of those where science and research can help us and can help us pull through. And I'll start by saying energy. Energy is a major problem at many levels. Water is going to be a major problem at many levels. You can bring water to the Sahara. Yesterday evening on the way back, I was having a conversation with Genevieve's son, who's actually a specialist he says in rocks and whatever is in Earth. I don't know if you've seen the movie The Martian, where on Mars he actually, just from a few things, from chemical reaction of things that are around us, he can create water. He can even grow potatoes and whatever. And it is because this is what research and science about, is providing solutions. And my point here as well is that those solutions should be adapted to the question and where they should be applied. You can't do hydraulic bridges in the Sahara. You could use solar energy, and you could bring from the solar energy and some chemical reaction water to the Sahara. So the point is, exactly also for women in science, it's not one size fits all, one solution for all, one blanket for everyone. No, more personalized. Things that go with one thing than the other are better for one. We all have our diversity. And actually, the more diverse we are, the stronger we are. I'm coming back now to life sciences. The more diverse your genome is, the less likely you are to have problems in your health. So please intermingle. And we should cross-feed and cross-breed and be like cognizant that diversity is a gift, and a gift that we should be sharing across the board. I don't know about you, but I ask myself, I work on cancer. By accident, but I work on cancer. I really want to treat, I really want to understand. I don't know if you saw it from yesterday, for those that were here yesterday, I want to make a change. And when I thought about it, you think about evolution. When, cancer existed even in mummies, they found breast cancer, actually, but it wasn't the number one killer. The number one killer was malnutrition, infection. Infection are still in Africa the number one killer, and in other places. But that shows you that there's been an evolution. We are now aging. We weren't, and we're seeing diseases that are associated with aging. Which can we prevent? Which can we make more? All of it is a continuum. So if we look at one stud, not the other, we say no advances have been made. Gazillion one have been made. Is it enough? Never enough. But let's move, and let's move wisely, and let's move as a community, helping each other and understanding the need of each other. I work on cancer in kids. How many minutes do I say? Okay. I work on cancer in kids, and when I started, really, I'm an immunologist, so I trained in France. I was all set to work with Alain Fischer on primary immune deficiency, my passion. I actually embarked on the journey of research when I learned how the TCR could be made. Like, this is the diversity of our immune response and whatever, was fascinating. And I just wanted to understand, to know, and to go further. Met my husband. My husband is Canadian, and I love Canada now. He couldn't work there. And I went. I said, okay, I'll do a postdoc. I worked on host-resistant infection. They were desperate for hematologists, oncologists. I was here, and I wanted to do research. And when you look and you see in Canada, immune deficiency or not, they're there, but this is not a big population, so it's not a place where you could grow, and the needs weren't as much. Brain tumors in kids, oh yes. Limited information. So I said, maybe let me use my tool set, my skill set, and tackle this problem, especially that I'm going to be treating those kids for some. And you start. Don't be afraid of starting a new field. Look at where the needs are. Create your tools. Create your community. Have people work together. It's more fun. Actually, it's way more fun than working solo. And we stumbled because the next generation sequencing, Aviv Regev got this prize last year. So all of those sequencing technologies that we provided, you work with what people did before you. You're not the only one. And you have to recognize what was done before and how you're moving forward. We found this histone mutation. And again, for me, it is a gift, not a gift for those kids. And I'm hoping that I will be treating them. But it's a tool that I'm now using to understand how our genetic information can get expressed. Yesterday, I used music as a comparison. DNA, our nucleotides, C, T, C, G, A, C, T, C, meaningless, like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si. It's how you organize them, how you put them into a partition, and partition can vary. That makes a cell. Our DNA, 2 meters 10 long, compacted into nothing, into the nucleus. But yet, with this compaction, you open and close what you need to open and close and make the information meaningful. And the epigenome and those histones participate in the beautiful diversity that we're able to create. And understanding with a tool that those histone mutations provide us, what are the marks that are important? What is the interplay? There are some that are coming, two marks, for example, that are opposite, how they are cross-talking, how can one influence the other, and how can you revert it? So we're now beyond cancer, working on developmental disorders, neurodevelopment, not only in kids, but also Alzheimer's, dementia. It's a disease of an aging epigenome in a lot of cases. So the message here, you start somewhere. If you're curious, if you have the right people around you, not even the right people, if you have good people around you, and you move forward, you will stumble on so many beautiful things. And go where your curiosity dictates, where your passion dictates. You have role models that are better here, others that are better there. Which one is the one you want to be? And that's your choice. But I would really beg you to try, because you owe it to yourself. I don't care when I have students, if they're male, females, non-gender, whatever you want. What I want is not only grades. I don't care sometimes about grades. I want passion. I want enthusiasm. And I really want them to work as a community. And this is how you move forward. And this is my recipe. It's not everybody's recipe. So please be aware of that as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Jabado, for your insights, and I have to say as well, inspiring story. It was very, very interesting. So we have time for some questions. So once again, I'll open the floor to questions, please. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon to everybody. My name is Andrea Gamarnik from Argentina. I'm the director of the Instituto de Investigaciones Bioquímicas at Buenos Aires, and I'm a virologist. Nada, thanks a lot for your nice comments about this huge topic of why is science indispensable for the world. I think that we all know that science is very important to have a better world in many, many regards. And countries like Argentina and other South American countries have this concept that because we are poor, we don't do science. We don't have enough money to spend in science. So I think that the concept is the opposite. Because we are poor, we need to invest in science. And what do you think from your perspective about that poor countries need to invest in science? Because we cannot wait until we get out of poverty, and then we will spend money in science, in programs, and so on. It's the other way around, I think.
You cannot imagine how much I agree with you. When I decided not to make a presentation, it was also to show that only with a voice, you could give a message. You don't need the tools, you create them. And I'm not saying it's harder when you don't have all of the materials, but I think it takes the enthusiasm, the intuition, and you can do things at any level. And I think it's wrong to say that because this is a poor country, research should not be there. And Rose shows it. It's not that Africa is poor, but you don't need the gazillion machines, the sequencing, the tools, the beauties. I worked 2 years in a row in Africa. I worked in Rwanda at the time of the cholera epidemic. I worked in south of Sudan. And I left rich because you work, the moment you understand that if you work with the tools that people have in place, things can get better and better and better. It's common sense and building strengths.
Yes, I think only I add one comment. Yes, and in that regard, it's very important the collaborations and the interactions between countries that are rich and countries that are poor. And to work together, probably it will help to move forward in this direction.
So what we're doing now, so for example, I spoke about those beautiful sexy techniques of DNA methylation, gene expression. They're not available except in specific countries. But that doesn't mean that the others should not be privy to what we could get. So this is where we have emissaries. We do video conferences. We even go over there and we provide the tools virtually or even by giving the sample and providing answers, because we are a community. And again, they should not be reliant on us. But this is a first step, and we build their independence very fast with them by forming them.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? Please.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Mana Perisic, working here at UNESCO, and we work a lot on open science, actually. So I think your last words were talking about open science indeed. So I wanted to know a little bit more about what are the practices, the methodologies that you're using to increase access to the knowledge that you have, to the tools that you have, to the labs that you have, to others from the same countries, from the same region, but also to others outside of those regions.
So again, this is a discussion that I have all the time. I don't work with industry, but with academia and everything. I say that the sequences are taxpayers' money. They're not mine. I don't care about if people can go faster and further what we've generated, they should. So they are put in the open with some boundaries, because we don't want them to be used or abused, whatever. And we're putting actually ways. I'm participating in an effort that's called the virtual child. So having something that's a blueprint of a child from the development up to this. We're starting with the brain because this is where I work most, but it will be probably for every single organ. A lot of clinical information, and having people from across the world be able to ask their questions. We would have done the work of concentrating this information, because it's very hard sometimes to have, like those sequences travel, we could say that we're sharing whatever, they will never be able to get it. But just with an iPad or with a computer, they can log in like on YouTube and ask their question. And if they need more, they have a point to go, this is what we're really working hard to get as well. Because if we don't do it, we'd have succeeded for 10% of people? No, not interesting.
I also have a question from the chat, which I'll ask you if I may. It says, beautiful metaphor about diversity in genes in society. How can universities and institutions better support diversity within research teams and communities?
I think, but how can I say? There are so many, there is no one recipe. At McGill, I can tell you that the EDI, we have it all the time, and I don't want a training, because training is meaningless. I want examples, I want daily life. And the beauty of Montreal, and this is why I love living in Montreal, is I live in Babel. There are so people from everywhere. When I say everywhere, from Israel, from Lebanon, from Saudi, from the Emirates, from China, from everywhere, working together. And I think by promoting inclusion of different population, I don't want quotas. Value has to be first, but at the same value, what is it that's better, that would represent better the value that you believe in? And it's by actually teaching the values of diversity very early that will achieve what we want in the end. It's not at the top, we need to work at every level, but really work from the beginning to make our eye love color, to make our heart love everyone. I'm poetic here, but it's real. If you impose, you have problems. If you show that this is the norm, then you have a success.
Thank you very much. And with that, we'll say thank you very much for your presentation and for your responses. Thank you. Thank you. I'd now like to please introduce Professor Alicia Kowaltowski, the laureate for Latin America and the Caribbean, recognized for her fundamental contributions to biochemistry. Please, you have 10 minutes. Thank you.
I know how this works here. Okay. So thank you everybody for being here. I'm going to try to convince everybody that science is indispensable by giving you a mini lecture on my favorite field of science, which is metabolism. And basically, I'm going to tell you today where all our food goes. So I don't know if you ever thought of this, but an average human being eats about 500 kilos of food a year. And no human being ever gained 500 kilos a year, so where does all that food go? And basically where all that food goes is into metabolism and fueling what life is, keeping you alive. So I want to explain that a little bit more to you today. So what is metabolism? Metabolism is a word that's used by the general population a lot. It's basically associated with your tendency to gain or lose weight, but it's actually a lot more than that. Metabolism is a collection of chemical reactions that transform molecules within living beings. And these chemical reactions and these transformations are the definition of what life is. Every living being must be able to transform molecules. So metabolism is the very cornerstone of what a living being is. So how does metabolism happen in an animal such as ourselves? Basically, you're eating food which has different molecules that are shown here with different colors, and this is going to be transformed into different molecules within your body and within your cells that can give you energy to do your daily functions, to think, to move, for your organs to function. Now, we aren't a perfect machine, just like every car isn't a perfect motor. There's a little bit of loss of energy, so we also generate a little bit of heat. And also, we don't only generate energy through metabolism. We also break down the molecules in our food into smaller molecules that are kind of like building blocks, like Legos, that we then use to put together and make the molecules that are our bodies. We're constantly renewing the molecules in our bodies. And the fact that we break down these molecules in our food and then build the molecules in our bodies is the reason why you can eat baguettes your whole life long and you're never going to look like a baguette, because you're going to transform those molecules in your food into the basic building blocks and then build up molecules that make our bodies. So basically, any chemical, any molecule within your body is going to be transformed through metabolism. And typically, metabolism involves stepwise chemical transformations in which that orange molecule that's there becomes the red molecule through many different steps. Also, most of our molecules can follow different metabolic pathways. They can be transformed into different molecules. So you can see that the orange molecule there can become the yellow or green molecule. And the collection of different step-by-step transformations in different molecules in our bodies is actually huge. So this is a simplified depiction, and it really is simplified, of a human metabolic map. It's basically the structures of the molecules within our body and the transformations that these molecules undergo becoming different molecules. And we organize this in this form of metabolic maps. And there's a lot more to these maps. This is just a simplified version because you couldn't see the whole map itself. Now, if you look at this, it looks like a map of a road system of a very complicated city, maybe the road system of Sao Paulo, where I live, a megalopolis of some 20 million people with really bad traffic. And I think this comparison with road maps is actually a really good one, because there's a lot of parallels between how we organize our transportation systems and how metabolism is organized. For example, in metabolism, you have slow neighborhoods, where few molecules are going to be transported and transformed, and they're kind of in the neighborhoods, in the outskirts of the metabolic map. And more to the center of the metabolic map, you're going to have these metabolic avenues where lots of molecules are transformed. For example, where you're transforming all those carbohydrates in that baguette that we just ate. And then very much in the center of that map, you can see this huge round plaza there. That's the citric acid cycle, also known as the Krebs cycle, which is where we break down the molecules that come from carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids and fats into CO2, into carbon dioxide, and breathe that out, and also generate a lot of energy for our cells. So that's the very center of metabolism. Also, this comparison with metabolic maps, I think, is apt, because in our cities, we organize streets with one-way roads and two-way roads. So two-way roads allow a molecule A to become a molecule B, and also B to be transformed back in A. There's both pathways. One-way roads allow A to become B, but not B to become A. And the existence of one-way roads in metabolism actually explains why we are metabolically programmed for obesity. So I wanted to explain that a little bit more to you. So all of us eat carbohydrates, and we should eat carbohydrates. A diet that contains about 65% of complex carbohydrates, such as starch, is considered the best diet in terms of life and health span. So continue eating your baguettes. It's a very good source of energy for all of us. All of us should also eat proteins, because we need proteins, as Dr. Yan really nicely showed. Proteins are very important for many different functions in our cells, and we can only make proteins from proteins. So we need to eat proteins. Proteins are also a source of energy in our cells, and proteins can be transformed into carbohydrates. But this is a one-way pathway. Carbohydrates cannot become proteins. We should also eat fats and oils. This is the minor necessity out of the three, but they're also important for our health. I think everybody knows that fats and oils, lipids, are a good source of energy. In fact, in general, lipids have about double the amount of calories per gram that carbohydrates or proteins have. I think also everybody knows that if you eat a lot of carbohydrates, too many baguettes, you can transform these carbohydrates into fats, and you will store them as fats. This is a one-way pathway. You cannot transform fats back into carbohydrates. You will also store any excess protein that you eat as fats. We can transform proteins into fats, but not fats back into proteins. So it's a metabolic reality that anything that you eat in excess will be transformed into fats, and fats can only become energy. So our metabolism is basically designed to store any excess nutrients as fat. And this has an evolutionary reason. Fats are much more efficient in storing energy. There's about double the calories in them. There's another reason why we're gaining weight, which is evolutionary in terms of our brains. We like high-calorie foods, and we are evolutionarily programmed to eat them so we could survive in scarcity. We don't live in scarcity anymore, so we have an obesity epidemic. And this is caused by evolution. So obesity became a serious problem in terms of health spans and in terms of lifespans. Obesity increases the incidence of many different diseases, of cancer, of type 2 diabetes, of Alzheimer's disease, of vascular disease, other neurological diseases. So we really have to understand the metabolic changes involved in obesity in order to understand these diseases better. And that's what my lab is really interested in. So in a nutshell, what does the Energy Metabolism Lab in São Paulo study? Well, first of all, we want to understand normal metabolism. That map looks very complex, but we still want to add more pathways to it and more molecules to it. We're doing this all the time. So we understand the chemistry of our own bodies. We're also studying how different diets, obesogenic and non-obesogenic diets, affect metabolism, what molecules are changed in these different diets. And we're studying how these metabolic changes induced by diets affect aging and diseases that are promoted by aging and promoted by different dietary interventions. And we're doing this in many different models. So we're studying metabolism at the level of mitochondria. There's a beautiful picture of a mitochondria on that. There, mitochondria are the batteries of the cell where that central plaza of metabolism happens. We're doing this in different cell types. We're doing this with different organs. We're doing this using rodent animal models and also in patient samples. And most of all, we're doing this at the level of the molecule. So again, I want to really emphasize the importance of understanding the chemistry of life. Because when we uncover new molecules that are involved in biological processes, we open a whole new gamma of targets that we can use to treat diseases that involve changes in those molecules. And here's the importance of really basic science, understanding these basic molecules that are changed. I'd just like to end by saying that I don't do this alone. I have a wonderful lab, all wearing pink here for this day. And these are the young students who do the work in my lab. And basically my job is to keep them healthy and keep them able to do this science. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. So again, we'll open the floor for questions, please. So again, if you please raise your hand if you have a question. Please go ahead.
So one of the challenges that we face, I think, in Canada is with some of the population of the native population from up north. As you know, metabolism is something that fluctuates because of its evolution. Over there, food was scarce, and so they had to develop this huge amount of reserve during the season where they could get their food, and all of a sudden. And after that, they would lose it, and they would have no diabetes, no problems. And now it's like, because food is all the time there, is there a way that we could teach back a body to kind of modulate? How can we do that?
Yeah, so yes, there are lots of differences in personal tendencies for obesity and personal tendencies for hunger also. And there are lots of new mechanisms in which we have learned to curb some of these aspects. I think one of the big revolutions in the treatment of obesity that came recently are peptides that make you less hungry, and they are being shown every day to have effects also in obesity-related diseases. I'd really like to highlight how these peptides came to be from basic science. So they came to be from biology. They were inspired by nature. People were studying this animal called the Gile monster, which has peptides in its mouth, and it's trying to kill its prey through decreasing glucose in the blood of the animals that it eats. And people decided to try to study these peptides to use them as a diabetes drug, and started to modify these peptides to use as a diabetes drug. But within these modifications, they found a modification that really controlled hunger well and did not promote very low blood sugar levels, which are dangerous also. So it was kind of the perfect peptide to control hunger and to treat obesity specifically. And that's how the revolution of these drugs came, inspired by nature, but improved by man. And it's being continuously improved, and that's a really important aspect. So understanding these different mechanisms is really important. I'm going to give you a second example of how basic science changes metabolism, and this comes from Brazil. So my supervisor, Aníbal Versesi, was studying potato mitochondria in the 1990s in Brazil. And it was known since the 60s and 70s that there's this very important protein called the uncoupling protein in brown fat. Brown fat is not the fat that makes us fat. Brown fat is a fat that heats us up. It's really important for newborns to keep them warm. And it's also important for some mammals that hibernate, like bears. So they have to warm up when they're waking up. And we knew this function of brown fat. But Aníbal was there studying potato mitochondria, and he found the same protein in potatoes. Now, if a protein exists in potatoes, it's not exclusive to mammals, and it's not functionally important to heat the potato because the potato is not something like mammals that keep their temperature. So this kind of opened the eyes of the whole scientific community that this protein was much more ancient in terms of evolution and must have other functions. And because of this, they looked for this protein, found it in all sorts of other places, and found out that it's one of the main reasons why some people just don't tend to gain weight. They have a lot more activity of this protein, as adults, while other people have a lot less of it and therefore tend to gain weight. So basically, they're just burning their calories and putting CO2 into the world and, you know, promoting global warming. But that's how they keep thin. So basic science again.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm aware time
Sorry.
is clicking on, but we have a couple more questions, so please.
Well, I have another question for you. I was curious to hear your take concerning the aspect of transgenerational obesity, or the converse, when people have suffered from hunger. There was a report in Holland that had impact on some other aspect in the next generation. So what is your take on this?
Oh, there's a lot of studies on epigenetics of obesity, on how prior episodes of hunger affect obesity in the next generations. And that's a super interesting aspect of research also, especially because we have gone through different cycles. And also obesity of prior generations affects obesity in the next generations, which is super interesting. So there are so many models to study. I think we have jobs for many years, not only myself, but those wonderful students who were up there too. There's a lot to study.
Great, so there's really a need for science.
We'll have one last question, please.
Thank you. I'm from the Dutch delegation. It's fascinating to listen to you. Thank you very much. This is about female leadership, women in science. I would like to use this opportunity to ask your advice. I'm going to an event. It's about real estate, about the city of tomorrow. And I looked at the speakers. There's almost no women. It's absolutely unbelievable. It still exists. And so I called them and I said, why is this? And they said, all female speakers refused. So my question to all of you is, what advice would you give to that organization who's organizing this high-level event with female speakers refusing?
Well, did you ask how many female they asked in the first place? Okay. So I guess you have the answer.
Actually, may I just I mean, for that, I also noticed that for a few of us who have been very active, we received invitations all the time. It is impossible to say yes to all the kind of invitations. So I guess just identify more female experts.
On that respect, I just would like to stress that there are already some listings that have been established of women in their capacities in different areas. So it's simple to try and look at this list, because sometimes people just don't think about other people, and also to consider that they can also be bold and try the younger people. They will have very interesting insights as well. So we should not stay in a scheme where it's always the elder, the better. The young ones have also things to say.
I think we're going to have to stop there. I feel very, very difficult to stop this conversation here, but please continue in the coffee break and also in the second part, but we do need to move on. The time is clicking. So apologies for cutting those off. So next we'll travel to France for our laureate for Europe. And let me firstly thank Professor Kowaltowski for her presentation and for responding. And as mentioned now, we will move to Professor Geneviève Almouzny, who is recognised for her seminal contributions in molecular biology, and we're eagerly pleased to hear of your work over the next 10 minutes. Thank you.
So first, I would like to thank the audience here and also online for their interest in the discussion we're having. A lot has been already discussed wonderfully by my colleagues, so thanks to all of them, very eloquent, without slide, Nada, I was impressed. And my turn now, so I have to say that initially I was like you, thinking, I don't have the time, I'm not going to have my slides. But in the end, I end up being like a good girl, trying to make her good homework. And so I've pulled out a few slides. Maybe they are stupid, but okay, we'll manage. So you can see that we try what we can. Okay, so the good girl comes with the first slide. And so what I just wanted to stress is 4 aspects that I would like to take through. So in my work, I've been really interested into DNA and how in cells it is important to package it. And so you've heard a little bit about it from Nada, and I'll get to it a bit more. And also how that is important for healthy cells. But this is also obviously important for healthy organisms. And finally, I would like also to get to the point of working together, women and men, in a peaceful world, because this is how we can actually make progress. So if I get to my next slide, it's not the next one, so of course I do it wrong. You see, we can fail, and this is a mistake I've learned. Hopefully I won't make the mistake a second time, because then it means I learned nothing. So let's see. Okay, so here is a video that I showed at the Academy of Science, but I just want to show it here again, because I think you can see with this illustration, this aspect of the packaging of DNA, these 2 meters that in the cell nucleus fit into the few micrometers that a nucleus consists of. And so what this shows is that there's this level of compaction with multiple levels up to the most compact state, the chromosome, which is important for the segregation between the 2 cells. So what do I want to take from this? So there are building blocks, there are architecture, and there's also this aspect of dividing and reproducing what was there before. And so you reproduce not only the DNA, but also its organization, so that you can maintain some kind of information. And, whoops. This is the symphony that Nada was talking about. And actually, this image is an image that came from a discussion with a PhD student in my lab, Armelle Corpet, when she was in my lab, an amazing woman with 5 kids and a fantastic scientific career. And so she came up with this idea. We published that in Science and Avenir, and Nada liked it, obviously. So I took the symphony here, you can see from yesterday at the Women and Science event. So you can have different types of symphony, classical or more jazzy, like with the message of respect from Aretha Franklin. And on that front, maybe I can add another jazz person, Ella Fitzgerald, in her say, which I do like very much. What she said is, it doesn't matter where you come from, but where you're heading to. And so I think this is also another important message to get across. And this shows also this concept of one genome, a variety of cells. So you have these different symphonies in the different cells to give rise to skin cells, neuron, muscle. So the same information in each cell can be used differently and preserved to be copied in a given lineage. So the symphony in each cell, what I did in my lab was to try to understand some aspect of that and the variation in this theme, understanding how you could use different blocks in the construction and how this can be important for the cells, how you can duplicate it, how it is at stake when there's DNA damage as well. And the case of cancer obviously comes up, developmental disease, healthy lives, and many more situations. So I was told also after my presentation at the Academy of Science by this person in front of me. That was a bit complicated. So I'm stopping there, not more. So I'm not going into the details, but I just want to stress another important thing is that the people, we learn together. And so my team, the past and present, has been absolutely essential to really put pieces together. And we are not finished. I also want to say that in the challenges that are listed, there's one that I would like to add for the UNESCO to consider. To me, knowledge as such, to get to know better, to go for the unexpected is as important as addressing specific challenges, because there are things we are not necessarily prepared to. We've seen that with the COVID-19, and it was great that people before had been working on things that nobody thought could be of particular use. I want to stress Marie Curie, and Marie Curie has been an inspiration for me. When she discovered radioactivity, at the time she had no idea, and nobody else, that it could be used to treat cancer. And it was 10 years after that that was actually applied. So I think we need to be open-minded. And I also heard the point concerning poor countries. But poor countries have great minds, and they should not be afraid not to use these minds. They will contribute equally to increase our knowledge and the potential in our society. So I also wanted to mention the fact that not alone with people in a lab, but worldwide with the collaboration, I've been privileged to have lots of really remarkable collaborations worldwide through network, through European networks, but others. And we are continuing. I've benefited from also support, so it's important that there is support. So this is something to try and push for. And I have, I think, one more slide. So this is an older picture, but I thought I wanted to show that here you have lots of people and some with their families. And so I think it's nice that we also celebrate families as part of the lab. So we are a large family. And I also like the little baby at the bottom, just to keep you on the tip of your toes, to remember that you never know so much. So, well, men and women together, this is, I think, an important thing. I would love to see more men in this audience, because the matter of gender is concerning both genders. So hopefully there are many online, who knows. And for the men online, I just thank you for being there. And just finishing with some of the key points that we will be discussing. World needs science, and science needs women. Actions, and so I think this is where there's space for improvement. Dismantling stereotypes, so I think this is very important, and biases. So how can we do that? So that will be part probably of our discussion. The education, this is also clear, it comes very early on. And the workspace environment, to attract and to retain. So I think these are three important aspects that can help science to move forward. So I'm finished there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Al-Muzni. So a couple of quick questions, please, from the floor. The person at the back, please. You'll need to find a microphone, and please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Abada Simon. I'm an astrophysicist at Observatoire de Paris, inside of University PSL. A double question about the French Academy of Science. What is the percentage of women? And is the French Academy of Science doing anything to stop the sexual and sexist violence inside of academic world in France?
Well, this is very well spotted. So the numbers are shamingly low in terms of the number of women at the academy. I think that this is something that has been really brought up. And so there's actually a group that has been working on these issues, and there will be soon to be released a report on this aspect for action to be taken to try to improve this. So I hope that in some time we can come up with a better message on that front. And you're absolutely right. So there's space for improvement. Thank you for raising the point, and the Academy is probably listening, so that's good.
Okay. Thank you. I'll take one more question, please. Thank you.
Stéphanie Balm. I'm from a social science department. I'm from Sciences Po, a French university dedicated to social sciences. It's not a question, but a comment. At Sciences Po, we have about 76% of our students who are ladies. So we have the exact opposite problem. So what we have done, we have launched a new program called the Bachelor of Arts and Sciences. And by including fundamental sciences with social sciences, we've realized that we have more ladies ready to do hard science, fundamental science with social sciences if we combine the two together. So this is really something that we'd like to share. So we have too many ladies somehow in social sciences, but when we mix it with the other sciences, and we have a more balanced proportion, and we include more ladies ready to do fundamental science.
I just mentioned, sorry, that this topic will be in the next session, so maybe if you
keep
want to
that
answer
for
quickly, but
later.
we can discuss
But
in
I
the
think
second part.
it's a very interesting point, and I think having ideas for how to improve this aspect will be really nice to discuss. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And with that, we'll say once again, thank you very much, Professor Almonti. Okay, with my eye on the clock, we shall move on to our last speaker for this session, please. So Professor Rose Leckey, the Laureate for Africa and the Arab States, recognised for her outstanding research in immunology. Professor Leckey.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you all for being here this afternoon, and then again say thanks to UNESCO and L'Oreal, and to members of the jury that are here. And where's the pointer? Here we are. I hope I don't go this one. Yeah, I'm just, let me see, what did I put on this slide? Yeah, it means myself. Okay. I gave a talk the other day at the Academy, and I think I had this same kind of outline. But today, really, what I'd like to talk more about is our work with women, in science. I think for here, we all agree, I guess the other speakers have talked about, the world needs, what's indispensable, science, indispensable women. And so, let me see what I had here. Why science is indispensable to the world. I think everybody has talked about that. I will not go into it at all. Then why are women indispensable to science? About the diverse perspectives. But what I'd like to say here really, to know that women represent 70% of the health workforce. This is the area that, I look at more. And nearly 90%, when you talk of nurses and midwives, like in Africa, this is what you will see with the women there. But women in Africa and beyond face significant barriers. And I think that's what I want to come to talk to and see how we try to overcome some of these barriers. And my own life as a scientist, very briefly, just to bring you up, you all were not at the Academy of Sciences. I wrote a USAID grant. I had malaria when I was a child and wanted to understand malaria more. So when I returned home after my PhD, I wrote a USAID grant for malaria. And while pregnancy, next to me was an OBGYN who was here. And he kept on talking about problems they had, because with malaria, the susceptibility is more with children and pregnant women. And at that time, even they used to say pregnant women, immunity, whatever it is low in them. But at least for us, it was shown, Fried and Duffy had shown that there were these receptors in the placenta that would hold down, to the malaria parasites. So they knew why. But then Diane and I, the lady you see there, Diane Taylor, she, I met, when I wrote my grant years for USAID, they asked me to find an American collaborator. So Diane and I have worked for 20 years with a multidisciplinary team in Cameroon, and her own also in University, Georgetown University, where for a while I was an adjunct professor there for research. And then she moved to University of Hawaii, just to say we did a lot of work in malaria, trying to understand malaria in pregnancy. And then finally, one thing we could show the gynecologists who were really looking for is in diagnosis, where we could help them say when you don't see the parasite in the blood, parasite is in the placenta. So that helped also to them to be able to take care of the women. I wouldn't go much into this, but let's get into the work I did with, I've worked also in polio eradication a lot, and chairing the African Regional Certification Commission, and also a member of the Global Commission. And so here I have a certificate signed, the eradication of polio type 2 virus from the world. 6 of us do sign that certificate. And then the eradication of, the wild polio type 3 that we did in 2019, and 6 of us also members of the Global Certification Committee signed that certificate. And also then, I was very happy to be signing as chair of the African Regional Certification Commission, signing, the eradication of indigenous wild poliovirus from the African region. It was a lot of work, but finally that is signed. We have the variant now that is really bothering, Africa and the world, but we're getting there. And so also with Gavi, Alliance, the mission of advancing immunization, I chair the independent review committee for Gavi, and where, recently, what really pleased me was the approval of when the new malaria vaccine has come in. We have 17 countries that are going to be, using the vaccine now, and about 8 of them already rolled it out. So that's really, to me, a dream come true. And then, the vaccination was launched in my country. So now breaking barriers, just a little bit about what, for women in Cameroon, I just take University of Yaoundé here, where in 2016, you could see the number of women. You don't even see them here, 14 that were full professors. And you see the number of men here in red. But as we move on, I must say, when I looked at the statistics just for this, I was very happy, the color is going, doesn't matter, to see that for full professors, we have about 37 of them already, which is, and the men haven't, it's at 221. The women are trying, they're really doing their best, but still, being Africa and all the stereotypes, and finding it difficult to keep the home and the work going on, it's quite difficult for them. But that was a little bit encouraging. You have this gender bias in research, where women have it difficult in attracting funding for research, accessing national and international collaborations and networking, which you really need, reaching leadership positions, publishing as first and senior authors, finding supervisors and mentors, establishing a life-work balance. So we, in 2012 to 2015, we discussed it and formed the Higher Women Consortium, which is really, it's a mentor protege, that's what we call it, MPP, mentor protege concept, which, is really embedded in an integrated structure, focusing not only on the technical capacity, which is so important for building health research skills, providing support to develop, but the ability also to cope with the African psychosocial environment. I think that's what we do. We have what we call a holistic approach to mentorship, where we have career counseling. We have them, we are writing grants, teaching them how to write grants, how to write manuscripts. We do workshops at least once a year and retreats. And then when we do that, then you teach also the soft skills about time management, how to take care of the home. And you tell them, you know, never give up, never, never, never give up. And just make sure that you have your self-confidence, you dream big, and we instill this in the women. In the evening, really, we sit around a fireside, all of us. And then the other professors, the older ones like us, are telling them, I went through this, I went through that. And some of them are really in tears crying. Did they really go through this? And that's so encouraging for them because there are lots and lots of these hurdles that they have to go through. And so we promote interest in research and integrity, network building, maintaining a work-life balance to flourish professionally and personally. So we did conduct, after a while, we conducted a protégé survey to evaluate how our program was going. And the results we used to better develop and optimize the program for greater effectiveness. So the outcomes of this then was, you know, we have 30 mentors. So far, we have 150 protégés that have participated in the program since 2015. And so you can see that, you know, major research grants have been secured, resulting from these workshops and from these writing retreats that we've been doing with active mentorship. More protégés present their research findings now in national, international conferences. You know, they're having scientific publications in peer-reviewed journals, and mentees could now easily manage their time and effectively balance family life and career. And they really have testimony to this. You hear them telling you this. And then, you know, we've organized academic, like I said, writing retreats. We've done that. Women are guided in generating both holistic mentor-mentee relationships and how to benefit from postdoctoral scholarships and research grants. Some of them, you know, they didn't even know how you can get on the computer, go out, where do you look for these grants, and so on. So that we teach them all that. So since 2015, we've had like 5 workshops. Now we have webinar series where every Saturday, first Saturday of the month, you know, the last one was like aging with grace. You know, this is what the women decided to talk about. The next ones, and some are scientific, some are not. And so we've organized, and then we have so far organized programs in secondary schools to engage the young girls towards career in science. So for the 8th of March, this is the kind of thing we do, go out to secondary schools and have some meetings with them, and organize programs also in primary school to encourage people to prioritize science as their subject. So in conclusion then, I just want to say the mission of the Higher Women Consortium through this mentor protégé program is to be, you know, the center of expertise, information, and ideas to promote the career and competitiveness of women in science in Cameroon. And we're hoping that with what we're getting from here and other grants, we can move it also to other parts of Central Africa and other parts of Africa. And gender disparities then will be reduced. And mentoring, it has met with some challenges, sustainability, expansion, but we really hope to continue with this because we think it's so important. And we've heard the testimonies from these women. I had 2 of them were with us last night, and they've left. So the recommendations for a mentoring program to be successful: provide a structured mentoring program, train mentors also, and train the protégés to effectively navigate and maximize their relationship, continue with career development events and new editions of writing retreats, provide a sustainable network for wide reach exchanges within the outside of the program, and leverage local and international partners to foster the mentoring program sustainability, scalability, and expanded reach. Thank you very much. On behalf of this is just one of the women, and what she's saying, you know, they are the mentors. They're just saying how they got selected into programs, got scholarships, and got so because of, you know, this mentor protégé program, what they have been able to do. And here, I just want to say those are some of Higher Women. And thank you very much, and thanks to all the research teams that
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Licky, for your presentation. There's, in fact, an excellent transition into our second panel. So I think many of the questions that you may have, we can take up then, but I'll take two very quick questions here, if there are any. If not, we'll save them for the second panel. So please, if there's one or two questions. Seems not. So we'll. Oh, sorry, I didn't see. Please, at the back, please, and find a microphone and identify yourself. Thank you.
Hi. Actually, it's not a real question that I would like to ask. It's a remark and a remark. I would like to thank all the winners of that work.
Please speak close to the microphone.
I said that I would like to thank you. I would like to thank all the winner of that award, of all that woman that for what she done, because actually I think that this year the main message of that prize is really underlined, meaning that to decrease the gender gaps. And it's really interesting and really important. I want to thank all of them for that, because as I am a scientist, a young scientist, actually, I'm totally concerned by that kind of gap, but not only that kind of gap, there is other gaps, and they underline that message also, and I want to thank all of them for that. So thank you very much for all of you. But first of all, also, I would like also to congratulate them for their scientist works, because effectively the work is amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we have one last question, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm wondering if your scientific expertise can bring evidence, data for the government, and I'm asking about the connection between science and the policies and the practice of the real practice of science for societies, for the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. I was trying to get it. You know, like higher women known to I just don't have the picture, Ministry of Higher Education. In fact, our address is at the university, and we try to bring up, yes, to the government, you know, the work. We try to make them realize at times that women have to be encouraged very, very much. And the government does encourage us, because we want to have things at the university. Higher women are also a group that usually invited. So I think they realize that women are needed. They're women. I think the government also, all, not just the higher education. In my country, we even have a ministry of women's empowerment. But I always say it's not just the women. And I think one of my colleagues also had it, you know, we need the women to work with the men. We should always have that in the back of our minds. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Professor Licky, for the excellent presentation responses, and of course being a role model to everyone here and online. And also congratulations for being the first laureate for the programme from Cameroon. So this brings us to the first part of the event. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm afraid there were too many questions and too much engaging discussion and so on. It did feel rather rushed, but we do have the second session coming up. We've slightly overrun, so your coffee break, I'm afraid, will be slightly shorter. But if you could please have a quick coffee and come back in the room in 15 minutes. So we'll restart at 4:25 sharp. Thank you very much, and please remember to pick up a call to action available in all the 6 UN languages outside if you haven't done so. And if you're online, please put the kettle on and come back in 15 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're going to start with our second panel today. And as you saw this morning, I mean, earlier today, we were talking about why science is indispensable for the world, and now the question is why women are indispensable for science.
And again, we are very happy to have with us our 2024 L'Oréal UNESCO laureates for women in science. And I think there is a lot that we can learn from them. And I think there is a lot that they can provide as advice to us, UNESCO, and the global community in terms of how do we increase this percentage of women that are in science? How do we make sure that women pursue their scientific careers? How do we make sure that the glass ceiling gets broken more and more coming into the future? So today, before we start, maybe I'm going to tell you a little bit about what UNESCO has been doing lately in this area of promoting women in science. Of course, we have been working with L'Oréal in the promotion of this program, but we've also tried to go a little bit beyond with the call for action to understand, you know, what else can be done and to understand what can be done differently today as opposed to 20 years ago when we have actually started to think about this issue more broadly. So the call for action that you had seen outside, and you can scan here the QR code, it really is kind of a little bit of a consultative process that we've started exactly a year ago when we celebrated last year's laureates and the 25th anniversary of our partnership with L'Oréal. So we brought together different laureates, different people in the community to try to understand, okay, so what are really the priorities for action and what are the things, as I said, we need to do differently, a little bit innovative, knowing that we have young women, young men who use different means of communication, that we have working environments that have changed as well, and that we have other possibilities that are opening to us in our digital and very much interconnected world. So we've held this forum. We gathered kind of all of different inputs and we put them all into the call for action. And the different priorities that we have identified there are to dismantle gender stereotypes and biases in science, to open educational pathways for girls in science, and create workplace environments that attract, retain, and advance women scientists. So really we have seen that these are the key topics, key priorities to work on to make sure that we do close gender gap in science, because we've seen the numbers kind of stagnating in the last 15, 20 years. We've even seen them go down in certain countries. There are some improvements also, but in general, we kind of don't manage to get the numbers higher up, and we try to understand, okay, so what really do we have to do more? We also realize that there are so many people doing so many good things, and these actions have to just be expanded. People have to start to learn about them more. They have to understand that there are things happening, that they can learn from each other. And this is also one of the ideas of the call to action, is to really try to bring all those different actions to be more visible and to share amongst us, and also try to understand what are the new initiatives that we need to create to make sure that we do close the gender gap in science. So again, the call to action has all kinds of different recommendations, and we are starting to work on that now. We launched it, as Xiaofeng was saying, in February this year. And in particular, the way we were thinking about implementing the call to action is to have an international consultative group of experts who will be helping us in kind of getting a big picture. It's multi-stakeholder, international. We have people from different kind of sectors of life, both from academia, but also from the private sector, from the governments, and try to understand young people as well. So try to understand a little bit what are the different actions that we can do. We are going to create 3 action groups for women in science, and we are going to do that probably starting from next week, I think. And the idea is to create them around these 3 priority areas that we have identified. The action groups are going to be completely open. Whoever wants to join can join, and we'll have discussions, actions, ideas to share amongst ourselves. And then just really creating a global community of action, of practice around the issues of women in science. So our idea is really to kind of use the advantages of UNESCO as a global platform to create this movement around women in science, because it is not, as we heard before, it's not a woman's issue. It is a societal issue, and it's not a feminist issue. It really is a matter of making sure that A, we have better science, and B, that we really get the knowledge from everywhere we can to get solutions for these complex problems that we are facing today. So I think this is going to be enough from me, but it is just to let you know that this conversation is also taking part in the context of this call to action and trying to get some of your feedbacks and some of your ideas into our work. So maybe I'll start with Rose. And Rose, thank you very much already for giving us some of the ideas on the mentorship, because that is one of the very important parts in our action plan. But one of the things that we have seen also is that we have a lot of issues sometimes already at home. So girls don't go to science, or women do not continue science because there are some biases also inside their house, so inside with their parents, with their close relatives. And I wanted to ask you, what was your experience with regard to, your parents and their encouragement? What was their role? And how can we work with parents, with caregivers more to encourage both girls and women to go to science?
Thank you very much for that question. I think for me, coming from where I was at that time when women, if you think about it, years ago, women were not even going to school in Africa, and Cameroon in particular. My mother never went to school. And I think my parents had a lot to do with me. First of all, going to school and then getting into science. My father understood. He was a school teacher, a headmaster, and he kept encouraging me, go to school, I come back, and he'd sit with me and see what I had done in school and so on. I think parents have a lot to do with getting their children, at least just sensitizing them about education. And, I always tell the story where at Christmas time, the mother goes to a little store, whether in Yaoundé or not, and a little doll comes for the girl, and, some kind of a car or what comes for the boy. This is what generally, they kind of think, oh, this has been a nice doll for this girl, but this for the boy. But to try to make sure that the girls also start doing something like in engineering, planning. And today, there are so many games that they can do. It's not like in our days, so much is digitalized that they can, it just needs that parent encouragement again for the children to feel that, science is so important. Girls too should do the same thing that boys are doing. We have that problem with, early marriages, that parents just believe the children have to get married, the stereotypes and so on. But I think parents have that duty. And then let's not think it's only parents. Society has a lot also to be able to put in people's mind, to change a mindset. Really need to get people to understand that it's not only the boy that is going to, go to school, be an engineer, be a, follow STEM or something, that the girl also, whatever the boy is doing, the girls can even do better. I have places, some of our students, like in a medical school, sometimes you had more girls than boys in certain classes. So I hope, it's the girl, it's the parents, and then you motivate the girl herself with self-confidence, with a drive, like who said here, with the passion and drive. Say, this is it, this is what I'm going to do, and never give up. And then the parents, and then society also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And indeed, I think one of the programs that we are thinking about in the context of the call to action is to actually use our laureates to talk to the parents, not just to talk to the kids, but also to talk to the parents. So we will be getting back to you with some of these programs in different countries and trying to see how we can get these dynamics where actually the laureates and scientists are engaged in a conversation with parents as well. My next question is for Alicia. So again, we're talking about role models. We're also talking about the importance of mentorship. So in your career path, were there some specific women that have been particularly important for your career? And again, what can we do better to highlight those role models and highlight women scientists more for others as well, please?
So thank you for that question. I think this discussion is indispensable. And I also think that we have to remember that we're scientists and that science is the best answer will bring the best answers to questions that we have right now. So we should be consulting very closely with scientists that do understand the social sciences in terms of how to bring more inclusion and how to resolve these problems better. So in that sense, I don't feel like I'm a specialist in this case, but I do think that maybe there is an interesting case study in my experience as a biochemist in Brazil, which is not an experience as a minority. I'm actually part of a woman majority ever since I was a student. And this is true of biochemistry in Brazil. I was a minority when I went to the US to do part of my training, but I was never a minority in Brazil. How this happened, what were the basics that led to this? Was it early role models, which we did have? Was this because we do have paid maternity leave, because we do have salary equality at different levels? Was it more than that? How did this happen in this little niche of biochemists in Brazil? I don't know, but maybe we can teach something with that. So yeah, my main PhD mentor was a man, but the lab had many more women than men, and I have a lot of people who inspired me along the way who were women, and mostly were women. So maybe Brazil has something to teach to the world, how we achieved this. I really don't know the mechanisms, but I think we do have to respect the scientists who do study these sociological aspects, because they certainly will provide the best answers for this.
This is great. Thank you. Thank you very much. And indeed, again, one of the ideas with the call to action is to see where the good examples are and really try to understand why they are good examples. And this brings us back to the comment from the previous session about the importance of social sciences and social scientists, and the importance of bringing them together more with natural sciences, hard sciences. And I think that's something in general that we need to kind of strive to across different disciplines, including here at UNESCO. We have natural sciences and social sciences sector. Would be good to work more closely together, including on issues like this one. So thank you very much for that. Geneviève, a question for you. So one of the things that we are kind of trying to look at also is how we can change the working environment so that it better suits women, that retains women, motivates them, makes sure that they attain leadership positions, etc. So as we heard before, there is a tendency to kind of mold women to a system that is not necessarily done for women. And now our idea is, well, what can we do differently so that actually you do have an environment that is good for women? And I guess that also starts with the recruitment process. So any ideas from your side on how to make the recruitment process and in general the working environment more favorable, let's say, for women? And you can be as innovative as you wish. We can dream big, and then we'll figure out what the reality is and what can be done or not. So please go ahead.
Well, I think there will be probably a lot of people with many ideas. What I would just want to say is that to make an environment more favorable, it is probably a place where there's more confidence for people to be able to speak up about their issues that they could have. So I think this is one aspect. to have also very practical things in place. So for women with children, the aspect about lactation, making sure that there's space for that, and thinking about the details of the life. I think it would be really important also to ask the young women, because very often it comes from the top and the older generation that have an experience that is different from now. And I think we need to listen to them. So they do see things in a manner where both the environment in many ways is very important. And so what do they actually need to feel comfortable, men and women, so in terms of their exchanges as well. I was just discussing with people in my lab, and I heard that some women were actually saying that they felt looked at more, so how to say this, not disrespected, but a bit by men when they were asking questions as if they were not to be considered. And I was just thinking for myself, probably that has happened to me, but I didn't care because I felt perhaps that was kind of normal. And they made me realize it's not normal. And so perhaps there are things that we actually need to realize are not normal, and change a little bit in the environment. So these are very simple things. Other things for the recruitment, I think to make it perhaps much more friendly, there's at the European level, the validation of the human resource processes with the HSR4R system that indicates that for the all call, they are open to all people, regardless of their gender and disabilities. So just to put upfront that it's open, so it's there, so that's important. But also perhaps to go and look for people, because in some time people just don't dare to even come. So I think we need to have this process, and then to retain them, to make them feel that they can progress, accompany. The CNRS has won this year a prize for their efforts in terms of gender balance. And I think they're pushing for this aspect, for the promotion, to look for the women, to push them to apply, because they don't apply to be promoted, contrary to a number of men. And so that creates a disparity in the progression. So there's here also some perhaps margin for changes or improvement. But I could go on, so sorry, I stop.
Now go ahead, because I mean, it is really important to get these different ideas and as you were saying, also the good examples. If CNRS has done something that we can learn from, it's good for, and we don't necessarily always know, of course.
So on that respect, in terms of example, I would like also to stress example at the European level with the gender equality plan that have been put in place. And so these are now compulsory in all institutions where people want to apply for a funding scheme that comes from Europe. I also want to stress that actually the ERC had itself made its own gender equality plan way back, and so I think that has perhaps given some ideas for the other places to do it. But that's not enough. I think this is just all the institutions to say we want to improve, but then you need to check that they actually do it. So it's the beginning, but probably something to look into closer.
Wonderful, thank you very much. And yes, we were thinking really about, you know, those countries or institutions that do have a gender equality policy when it comes to science. What is the mechanism in place to actually evaluate what the success is, what the impacts are, etc. So I think these measurements are also going to be an important part of our work going forward. Yes.
So another thing I would like to say is also to try and have data, to try to monitor. And this is one thing that we try and do, at least at the ERC level, where we are trying to improve things. We really collect data on a regular basis to monitor how we are evolving. And that is definitely something that should be put in place. the benchmarking, comparing with different places. So I've been part of this alliance called EU Life with various institutions throughout Europe. And so we were involved into a program called Libra, which is for life and gender balance. And so in the context of this program, what was meant to do is to compare or to assess what is done in each of the different institutions, and then to cross-compare to see what is done here, or could it be used somewhere else or not, because the context may not apply. But that was a very interesting approach.
That is great. Thank you very much. And it also, again, brings us to the importance of these platforms for sharing experiences and kind of lessons learned and what works and what doesn't. And one thing that I forgot to actually say is that for those who have maybe scanned the QR code, besides being able to choose some of these working groups, you can also it's here. This is the QR code. So you can also actually put inside some of the actions and some of the things that you are aware of that are happening. We're going to have a map, hopefully within the next few months, where we will bring up all of these different initiatives. So for those in the same country or in the same institution or institutional setting, they will be able to kind of see some of these initiatives as well. And definitely, Geneviève, we will come back to you for more ideas and for the follow-up.
But maybe not just to me, because I would like to stress
Absolutely.
also that at the ERC, we had not long ago a conference on the aspect of gender and diversity in science and the converse. And so we looked at what people who had applied for grant from the ERC had done on that front. And so there's about 150 projects that were funded by the ERC touching on this issue from one way or another. So there's here places where you can tap into.
Wonderful, thank you very much. And I think Danielle at the end is going to also be telling us about a new survey that we are doing, talking about also trying to understand what the major barriers are. Danielle will tell you a little bit more about the survey, and I think the little pamphlets are outside as well. So it is about collecting data, but it is also about collecting kind of experiences and what particularly younger generations at the university level, but then also inside the workforce are thinking about some of these issues and some of these barriers. I'm very conscious of the time. I can also see Ezra looking at me. I know. I know we will probably go over maybe just some 10 minutes, but I do also want to, of course, have a question also for Nada. And this is a little bit more with, research evaluation, career evaluation. It's an area that we are starting to question a little bit when it comes to science. Are we using the right metrics to evaluate our researchers? Is that a good motivation? The way we evaluate researchers, is that a good motivation for them? Is that a good way for science to progress, including when it comes to gender equality in science? So maybe just some thoughts about the current research assessment and evaluations, and any thoughts on how that can be improved to increase diversity, to increase openness, to increase also gender equality.
Again, any metrics you use has pros and cons. There's nothing that is going to be perfect. Remember what I said, not one size fits all. My metrics are going to be, meaning the metrics that are being used in North America in my institution are going to be different than those that are used maybe in South America, maybe in Europe. Europe and the US is probably similar, quite similar to some level. So it's really, for me, there is no perfect way of assessing somebody's career. It's actually the question that you ask. Do I want to improve the recruitment of women and the advancement of women and still be equal to men? Because for me, there is a major problem. In where I am, in Canada, the government is really adamant, and it's very good, about numbers being closer to reality. And for example, I'm a Canada Research Chair. Thank God this is why I don't feel I got it because of gender equality, because there's also this feeling, am I getting this because I'm a woman? I don't want to feel that. I want to feel that I'm getting it because of my value, because what I am, what I can bring. Sorry. I become passionate when I think about that. I don't want to double guess myself, and I don't want a system that have other women double guessing themselves. I don't want to have a system where man becomes enemy, because we are yin yangs. We work together, and the CRC, the Canada Research Chair, is close to females, to males. White males, no way, not for a few years. This is not a good message. So again, what are the metrics? Am I advancing my career because the number of publication, my H index, my whatever? You look at what is it that you need for everyone. What is it that you want to promote? You try and get the best candidates. And if they are similar, you bring the one where you think the diversity will be the most favorable. And again, it's not a 1-year plan, not a 2-year plan. We're discussing that. It's probably a longer term plan. And you make some checks in between and you see how did it help. You look at how other people have done it and you see, will it fit for the system that you want, and can you put it? We need metrics, because for me, science and research are still about excellence, about providing. I don't want things that are average and things, you want people to be pushed for the top. So you need still to create a level of excellence and to recognize excellence and to récompenser. Reward. Thank you very much. I lose my English and whatever language when I'm. It's important to kind of keep that. And Rose said something. There are countries where education is not even a must. And so not one recipe. So maybe look at the lay of the land and create a plan based on what are the needs. And the needs is not our needs, it's the need of those societies. And start from the beginning. If you want women to work and do maths, and maybe our brain is made differently, or maybe our brain is the same, but just make maths as part of their life, as part of their joys, from the beginning, and going and growing. And we see with that, and science is here to kind of see how put incentives, things that are, if people like to laugh, like to play, like to enjoy themselves, and if they feel that they're being forced into things that they don't want to, it's never going to happen. So have it more as not a funny, but as something that's that you can enjoy, something that you could structure and you can build, and have the women feel that they can have wings. I always use that. We doubt so much. Can we do it? Can we have it? Can we do everything at the same time? There are times where it's hard, and there are times where it's easy. When it's hard, you have help. Your community is supportive. So find means and have them discover that those means are available to them. Imposing a mentorship sometimes is not the best way. You need to have mentors. Have them choose and pick. Have them go and think and tell them that any advice is only advice. It's what they need, they feel they have to do, that will push them forward. But again, one thing that Gaussians, they're extreme and there's a middle. And what fits someone doesn't fit the other. And everybody needs to understand what is it within a given country, within a given specialty. What was a winner and what was a loser, understand and use and promote further.
Thank you very much to all of our 4 panelists and our laureates. So I think now it gives you even a better impression of why these are our laureates for 2024, why they have received the award for the excellence of their research, but also for all the experience and everything that they can really pass to the other generations and people around them. Because, as I said, we should get out of our comfort zones and talking to the people that think the same as we are and try to find those who do not actually, and then try to address them as well. Time for 2 questions from the audience, 3? Okay, 1. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me? Hi, I am Noor Mimouni. I'm a neuroscientist. I work at Columbia University in New York. I'm also a Young Talent France 2021. And I had a question for the laureates and as well as UNESCO and L'Oréal for this beautiful partnership that I can speak for many laureates changed our lives. Are you going to increase those prices for underrepresented countries? And are there any plans to also encourage those young girls you're talking about, younger generations? I think representation is the key here. So I was wondering if that you had any plans in that direction. Thank you. And I had another question, but I think we won't have time. So yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your remarkable journeys that are inspiring to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll respond to that, and I'm also looking into Miriam from the Fondation L'Oréal. But maybe get another couple of questions if there are, and then we can take them all together. Yes, please go ahead.
So, hi, thank you very much for this event. I'm Lucille Alexandre, I'm a postdoctoral fellow, and as I'm applying for position, I'm lucky to learn a lot about how I can improve my science while I'm applying, but I'm also learning how to present myself. And I'm really, really lucky person because I've benefited from a lot of help that helped me as a woman to grow my scientific career. But as I'm applying, I'm asked to present myself as what's expected from the jury, so talking about what I did, I all the time, which is not something that I appreciate. I'm asked to be really confident each time that I'm talking, which is not something that I like. I'm doing science because I like to doubt and to not know things. And this is quality that I've been asked, and this was a little bit difficult to hear, but I think it was a good advice to talk more like a man. And this has been an advice that was given by people that really care and that know that this is gonna be something that is demand from the jury. I'm really lucky to be a woman that exists in a world, in the scientific world and everything, but I don't want my daughter, if she one day decides to be a scientist, to be a lucky girl in a scientific world of men. I want her to be a lucky scientist in a world of scientists. And I'm wondering how we can improve this, and if you have advice on how you manage to do this.
Great, thank you very much. One last question over there, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you everyone. My name is Aníbal Guerrero. I'm a Chilean student at the Master in Public Policy at Yale University. I'm an intern at OECD. And I wanted to share an experience that I had when I worked at the Ministry of Education in my country. During the admission process to higher education, we sent a text message, of course, to women. To every student that was applying to higher education, and just congratulating women that perform at the top 30% in math and science, increase applications to STEM careers by 2.4%. So related to the previous question, just encouraging women and making them more aware of their capabilities and that they are able to do these careers showed an impact, a positive impact on a cost-effective policy. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So over to you with the advice from the previous speaker and also comment from our colleague from Chile, please.
I think you should continue speaking just like you are and be yourself. I would hire you if I were on a panel.
But they don't hire me, so there is something that I need to change right now.
It's not because one time it failed, or 2 times, or 3 times. Again, it's if you're not you, the interview will never go well. Maybe you were trying too hard, unfortunately, to be like a man, and the real you wasn't shining enough. What I would advise is to kind of try and take a step, and it's very hard. It's always very hard. I never will be on the board to kind of recruit a medical student for them, the one that become doctors, because it's so hard for me. I can't do it because you need to make a choice. And my students that go, they always say, I did a beautiful interview and they didn't get it. I tell them to step back and revisit. What were the questions? How the answers were with a more critical eye and with advice. And then from there, you will see where they sense some weaknesses that they didn't want and work on your strengths. So it's always, it's not our fault or whatever, but part of it is our fault. This one we can work on, and you push it forward.
I would like to back up to some extent what Nada said, because I think it's always important to try to look at whatever criticism that you get to see what you can do about it. But it doesn't mean that you have to deal with it in the way people expect. You can actually surprise them and show them that with your own you could also bring something on the table that will be super interesting. So I think you can twist the thing. So that's on one angle. So I think that's in your hands. Having said that, I would like to add that on the other hand, it is true that there are biases. And I think we all have biases. We have to acknowledge this, any of us, because of the way we were raised, of the society and the context. So in terms of any places that is meant to hire, it's important to have a reflection for the people involved in the hiring processes about their biases. So being primed with some kind of thinking about these biases is important. Here again, I will put forward the ERC because I have an experience in this context. So there's a slideshow that is presented to the panel just to explain where and how we can have biases. And so when you start thinking, you're more aware. So it doesn't mean it does erase your biases, but you're aware and you pay more attention. And then perhaps in the discussion, also having group of diverse people so that you mitigate the diversity of the biases in the group that can help together to come up with a better outcome. So these are sort of little things.
Thank you very much. And Rose, please.
No, I just have one thing to say. I think all has been said here, but that should continue to have more self-confidence. And as I always say, never give up. Just keep on going. Never give up. Let nothing really put you down. Obstacles, you do everything to overcome them and use them as opportunities and get to the next interview. Never give up.
Thank you very much again for this wonderful discussion, for all of your advice. We really are very privileged to have such exceptional women scientists in our network, among our contacts, and we really will do as much as we can to promote you more and also to have the audience like this interact with you as well. Now, going back to the question about the number of awards and young talents, we have been in the past 26 years actually increasing the number of different young talents awards around the world. There is 53, 54 programs in different countries. We had just recently launched one for the Caribbean, so the idea really is to try to expand the program as much as possible with a certain pace and try to reach as much women scientists around the world. I think with this, we're going to close. Yes, go ahead, please. Yes.
I'm sorry, it's a reflection that with Alicia, we're having the same thing. I'm very grateful for the award that we're getting. It's great to have role models, but people, when they look at us, they say, well, we'll never make it. And this is not true, first of all. But second, the award, those young people's award are the most important. Because those, they can relate. They are the same range of age, close to, and this is where a difference will be made. To show that they can go from there to there, it's important. But there, already is having them start there and then bringing so that go up there, it's great.
That's great. Thank you very much. And actually, we want to engage our young talents in a work with our Associated Schools Network program that UNESCO has, and have programs that have them come to schools and interact with schools online and on-site, precisely because of that, because they can relate more and there can be more of an open discussion between them. But we also need stars, and you know, somebody to look up to.
Stars fade, stars are really.
But I think you should also realize the stars are not stars. I mean, we are just the same. And we've been lucky, and we've made some, and we're older, so we've accumulated things.
Thank you so much. Thank you. A round of applause. Great. And with this, I'm going to ask Daniel Plisch, the Chief of Policies and Strategies for Gender Equality, to just quickly wrap up, give us some closing remarks before we invite you downstairs for a little cocktail. Daniel?
Wow. After these past hours and days listening to all of you, we are just so honored and humbled, and we feel like this little 1 millimeter person shrunk in front of all of your amazing achievements, your accomplishments, your wise words, and thank you for sharing all of your experiences with us today. But I would like to ask the audience to take a very good look at who's on this panel, because we know that while only 10% of the Nobel Prizes for natural sciences go to women, we also know that many of those 10% started out as UNESCO Fondation L'Oréal laureates. So we have here potential Nobel Prize winners. So. So, yes, you're telling all of us to believe in ourselves, so we believe in you.
It's not a question of believing, it's a question of wanting. Do I really want no, it's not that. It's like, we get it, we get it. It's not, the aim is to enjoy ourselves and do the best we can in science. Nobel Prize, other prizes, okay, they can happen. It's not my aim. My aim, for me, I want to move forward. I want to enjoy myself, and this is what I'm doing.
Thank you, Anna, for inviting me to give some closing words. I'm going to be very brief. I'm first of all grateful that you didn't ask me the question about why science is indispensable for the world, so that's already been dealt with. There's just one question that I wanted to address, and that came from the audience anyway, and the question was, how long does change take? We see that, in fact, when it comes to gender inequalities in this world, scientific discovery is moving much faster than dealing with gender inequalities. The UN has just estimated that it's going to take another 300 years before we can achieve gender parity. We will certainly need a very big microscope to magnify these root causes, and today was a good start towards any gender transformative action that UNESCO takes together with you. We are all inspired today, inspired by your work, inspired by your ideas, inspired by thinking outside of the box and not according to special rules, but indeed to have fun, to be curious, to seek new paths, and not to be afraid to go in unexpected directions. These are all messages that I took away, and I'm sure everybody else here did too. But we also know a few things. We know that women struggle to pursue STEM careers, and this starts at an early age. This starts with many girls. We just launched a study last week in the education sector where we have seen that girls are suffering from unjustified anxiety in mathematics. And these are being supported through biases, gender norms, and stereotypes. This, as we can imagine, results in a reluctance to study STEM and a lack of women in STEM-related workforce. We know that women represent only 35% of STEM graduates, and this has not changed in the past 10 years. That is a problem. Women hold 25% of the science, engineering, and ICT jobs, and this is only changing at a snail's pace. Today we've seen and heard about many solutions, that it starts with the family, it starts with the parents. We heard that mentoring, counseling, network building, role models can make a difference, but only if it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. We see that bringing different sciences together can also make a difference, as well as different generations of women like we've seen here. I think we've seen some mentoring happening here in the Q&A session, that different perspectives, diversity is to be the new normal. To never give up, never give up. So let's all work together. Let's all work together to implement the call for action to close the gender gap in sciences. Let's work together to realize this dream of diversity, of not having to eventually talk about wanting or needing more women in science for a healthy world. And I would just like to encourage you all, because part of our work here at UNESCO is to understand better what are the root causes of inequalities in this world. If you are studying STEM or working in STEM, please, we have this card out here, there's QR codes, to participate in a global survey on women studying STEM and women working in STEM, because we want to go beyond the numbers. We don't want to know just how many of you are studying, how many of you are graduating, how many of you are disappearing after graduating, and how many of you are succeeding. We want to know what are the more specific dynamics and the specific reasons for this to happen. So I encourage you all, and thank you very much.
So thank you all again very, very much. Thanks to our laureates, thanks to our audience, all the different speakers. We are inviting you downstairs. There is a little cocktail and some more time to exchange and network downstairs. Thanks again for being here.